Good morning, TESOL, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. My name is Kory Stamper. I am a senior editor of American English, working with Cambridge Dictionaries, and I want to talk this morning or this afternoon about finding the right word for the right context using a tool that we've developed at Cambridge. Now, if you've ever tried to learn a language, you know that it is incredibly important that you have the right word for the right context. When I was learning Finnish, one of the first words you learn is hyvä. Hyvä means good. Good appears in everything. Hyvää huomenta, good morning. How is the food? Se on hyvä, it's good. How are you? Hyvä, kiitos, I'm good, thanks. Everything is good. Hyvä is a really flexible word. And so it appears in a lot of things. And I was really glad to have hyvä in my toolkit when I went to Finland. But I was really frustrated because hyvä just doesn't have the right nuance or the right, meaning for some contexts. So I was hiking in the north part of the country, which is beautiful. Ancient forests, rolling hills, just gorgeous. And all I could say was, oh, se on hyvä. Yeah, it's good. One of the people I was with said, oh, you mean kaunis. Kaunis is a word that means beautiful and lovely. And when I discovered that, I thought, oh, this is what I've been looking for. I could go hiking and I could gesture at this magnificent forest and say, se on kaunis, it's beautiful, not just, it's hyvä, oh, it's good. This sort of vocabularic range is important as you're learning a language. And we know, particularly for our students, how important it is for them to feel like they have the tools they need to succeed. So I want to go through one of the tools we've developed to help your students learn the right word for the right context. This is going to be in 3 parts. We're going to talk first about the tool and what it is. Then I'm going to give you a tour of it. And then we're going to talk about some classroom activities. When I say classroom, I mean also virtual, that you can use that incorporates the tool. So the tool we have developed is a thesaurus. Now, what is a thesaurus? A thesaurus is a reference work. It's a tool that groups words of similar meaning together and lists them. So that's a list of synonyms. And sometimes it will also list words that have the opposite meaning. Those are antonyms. Thesauruses can be really helpful for learners for a few reasons. The first is a thesaurus can help increase their vocabularic range. So we know from studies that in order to feel proficient in a language, a student needs to have an active vocabulary of between 5,000 and 9,000 words. And that is so many words. And how are they going to learn all of that? You can't just give someone a list and say, memorize these 5,000 words. So we know that they need to increase their vocabulary range. We know that increasing their vocabulary range also will help them better prepare for assessments and exams further down the road. And just having more vocabulary in your toolkit can give you confidence. And we know that we want to do everything we can to give our students confidence with the English language. So we have developed a thesaurus at Cambridge. Why should you use a thesaurus? You might have heard some people say, oh, don't let your students go crazy with a thesaurus, because most of the thesauruses that are out there are not actually written for learners. But the Cambridge English Thesaurus, which is online and free, is written specifically for English language learners. You will see when I take you on a tour of it that this thesaurus gives students important usage examples and information that helps distinguish all of the synonyms from each other. There's also some clear register and usage labels at the thesaurus entries, so they can know when a word is informal or when it's formal or when it's used in British English or when it's used in American English. And importantly, the Cambridge English Thesaurus is based on the Cambridge corpus. Now, the Cambridge corpus, if you don't know, is a collection of about 2 billion words in written and spoken contexts. And that's what we actually use to build almost all of our learners' dictionaries and learners' references. So it can be based on real life examples in speech and in writing. So now that we've covered what a thesaurus is, and I've hopefully convinced you that a thesaurus can be helpful for your students, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the Cambridge English Thesaurus together. Okay, this is dictionary.cambridge.org. This is our free online collection of references for learners, and this is where you're going to find the thesaurus. So right now, if you look something up, you're going to get it in the dictionary. So what we need to do is we need to go to the thesaurus. You can do that one of two ways. You can either click this thesaurus button down here to switch to the thesaurus, or you can click the tab up here that says thesaurus. That'll be on every page, so you never need to worry. You'll know you're in the thesaurus when things turn purple. So let's start. I said that a thesaurus was a collection of lists of synonyms. That means that from here your students can look up a word and get a list of synonyms. So let's take a look at the word angry. You're just going to type it in. If it shows up in the drop-down, it's entered. You can hit enter. All right, this is our thesaurus. Now, if you have ever used a thesaurus before, some of this is going to look familiar, but some of it hopefully is going to stand out as being very different. And if you've used the Cambridge Dictionary before, parts of this will look very familiar because it mirrors some of what's in the dictionary. So we have the word you've looked up, angry, and then below, above the list of synonyms, you have this purple guide word or a guide phrase. That should be familiar to you. That will tell you sort of what the general meaning of this word is. In the case of angry, it means angry. Now we get to the good stuff. You're going to see that we include examples for every synonym and every antonym that's in this list. Why do we do that? Because it's important for students to see a word in its right context. As you go down, you scroll down, you will see that we have synonyms and examples. Again, every synonym gets an example. The examples are keyed to the register and the use of those synonyms. We include labels. Here's an informal label. Here's a regional label. This tells you that SOAR is US English. If we scroll down, we're going to see that CROSS is mainly UK English. And we don't just include individual words, because vocabulary is more than individual words. We include multi-word expressions. We include idioms. We include collocations. We want to give our students as much flexible language as we can. And you'll see that if we have an antonym, we've got it down at the bottom with a thesaurus. This is sort of the more familiar part, and you may think this is great. Example sentences and these great labels. This is super helpful for my students. But there's another level of learning that I want to show you that we've built into this. If you go to the bottom as you scroll down, you will see, go to the thesaurus article about these synonyms and antonyms of angry. If you click that, you'll be taken to the next level of learning, which is we have taken all of the information in the Cambridge corpus, we have analyzed it, and now we have written an article that helps explain in detail the differences between all of these various synonyms and antonyms for your student. So you'll see, here's our thesaurus article for angry. The first sentence tells you what the general meaning is for all of the words that are in that article. We will highlight what the most common word is, or what the broadest word is. And you'll see that we give lots of example sentences, as many as we can. If there is an antonym, we highlight it. Here's one. And if there's an article for that antonym, here's a clear link to that. So you'll go down, and as you see some of the information we give, you'll see that we parse out not just slight connotational meanings, but we also give really important usage information that is, again, gleaned from that Cambridge corpus. So we'll tell you if a particular synonym is more common in business writing, or in legal writing, or in medical writing. We'll tell you if a synonym is used only of people, or only of things, or only of situations. We'll tell you if something is formal or informal. We'll tell you if it's a little bit less formal than a formal word or a little bit more formal than a really informal word. We do that for all of these, and we make sure that we've got an example sentence that is drawn from the Cambridge corpus again. So these are real life examples that helps show the right word in the right context. So why would you have so much information here? It might seem overwhelming to students and it might seem overwhelming to you, but this is actually great because it encourages a student's autonomy. They no longer are relying on you to explain the difference between angry and cross, or furious and fuming. Now they can go here and they can read on their own. And it saves you some time. You don't have to look up and explain these things. You don't have to rely on your own knowledge of the language, which even as a native speaker and even as someone who writes dictionaries for a living, I can't trust my instincts sometimes. I need to go to actual usage. So this is a way that we have helped parse all of that for students and for you so that you can see very clearly what the differences between these things are. There's also some extra navigational aids here that I want to highlight. If we go to the bottom of the article, we're already there, so why not? You'll see there's a link to related articles. Now, these are generally words that are sort of the same meaning cluster, but are a different part of speech. So here's a verb, here's a verb, here's a noun, here's another type of adjective. So if your students know angry, but they perhaps don't know anger, the verb, they can get there. And if you go down below that, we have a browse box where your students can just play around with the individual words and the articles that are entered into this. So let's say that you've done angry, but you'd really like to read the article about approximately. You'd really like to read the article about art. They can do that as well. Let's click back to the word list. You can get to any word's word list by clicking the underlined word here. Now, again, as we go down, more aids, you'll see this See Also box, which just has a whole lot of words in it. These are the synonyms that are a part of those related articles. Again, if your student knows angry, but they don't know anger, or they don't know the verb frustrate, now they can see that it's related in meaning, though not in grammatical use, to angry. If you look at this Learn More box, this is really helpful framing for all of these synonyms and antonyms. The Learn More box explains how each of these different grammatical parts fit together. So for angry, if you feel angry, you have strong feelings that make you want to shout or hurt someone. There are related terms to angry. If you get angry, you start to feel this way. If you make someone angry, you make them feel that way. You can talk about a person who gets angry easily. The feeling itself is called anger. This is like a little set of synonym helps for your students that just talks about the related derivational terms for one word. We know English is a highly derivational language, right? We have the ly adverbs, and we have the ness nouns, and we have the ity nouns, and this is a way to frame all of that in clear prose, written specifically for learners. And again, little browse box at the bottom to look at individual word and their word pages. It's important to know a couple of things. The first is because this is a free online resource at Cambridge Dictionary, it's also integrated fully with the Cambridge Advanced Learners Dictionary. At the top of every word page, you can click on the definition link to go to the dictionary entry for angry. And if you're in the dictionary and it has a thesaurus entry, at that particular meaning, what you can do is you'll see it as you scroll down, you'll see a box that says thesaurus. You can click on the bold-faced guide word to take you to the article, or you can click on each of the individual synonyms to see the word list. We don't list all of them here, just a couple of them. We're always adding to the Cambridge Thesaurus, just like we're always adding to the Cambridge Dictionary. So if your student looks up a word and they want a synonym for it and it's not in, it'll be in soon. We're adding as much as we can. And if your students look up something in the thesaurus and feel like there are some synonyms missing, particularly as they get to an advanced level, don't worry, we're working on that too. So this is the Cambridge Thesaurus. We're very proud of it. We put a lot of work into it. We think it will be an excellent, excellent resource for students. And I hope that you can see in particular why it's so helpful. Now, it's helpful for students, that's clear. That's great. How are you going to incorporate this into a classroom setting? You already are so busy. So here are some ideas for how to incorporate that into the classroom. And again, when I say classroom, classroom means virtual. One good way to familiarize them with the thesaurus and to help them sort of get into that idea of how do we distinguish between all these different synonyms is to pick a word of the week. Now, I would suggest starting with a word that they all know: bad, good, more, things like that. You, ahead of time, look up, find one of the meanings that you want to highlight, and then make that word and its meaning in the thesaurus your word of the week. So here I've highlighted good, meaning of good quality. You can assign this to students individually or in groups. Have them read the article and answer some basic questions. How many synonyms are in the article? That can be helpful for knowing that some words have a lot of synonyms and other words don't. Are there some synonyms that are only used of people or only used of things? In this article in particular, there are some synonyms that are only used of food. Help them figure out what's the right context for these particular synonyms. Are there positive synonyms or negative synonyms? You'll find as you go through the articles that we will list if a word has a negative connotation or a positive connotation. We'll say it's an approving word or it's a disapproving word. And this can help them know that if someone is, talks a lot, you might not want to say that they're garrulous because that might be disapproving. You might want to say they're chatty. That's a slightly more approving word. Are there any antonyms here? Get them used to looking for opposites. And if there are antonyms and they have time, encourage them to read the article for the antonyms and see how they mirror each other. And then finally, is there a new word that you learned here and that you like? And ask them why they like it. Most likely they'll say it's because it's helpful. Help them practice it. They can go ahead and read verbatim the examples that we've given there, just to get the feel of the word in their mouth. That's why they're there. So the word of the week is a great way to familiarize your students with the thesaurus. Well, what happens if you have students that don't have great reading comprehension or perhaps aren't really, don't learn well through text? Meme it. Now, what's a meme? A meme is an image, usually one that seems kind of funny, that has captions that are put on it and spread throughout the internet. If you have any students under the age of 50, they know what a meme is. And some students who are visual learners do great with memes. Give them an article and tell them to create a meme out of it. So I took a really common meme here that's called Galaxy Brain, and I put some of the synonyms from the article at big here to show how big the synonyms at big get. Are these memes going to be really funny jokes? Probably not, and that's fine. But what it does is it makes this a game for your students. And I don't mean gamification game, I just mean this is a fun, silly activity. And it also helps familiarize them with the types of wordplay that go on with memes, because those types of wordplays are also important in conversation. Now, another thing you can do with the article is register recognition. And this doesn't require a ton of work on your part. What I would do is I would look up a word. This one is talkative, and I'd read the article, which is on talking a lot. I would look for a word that's got clear formal and informal variety in its synonym list. You're going to take a word that is really formal or really informal and absolutely flip its context. So here we have prolix, which is a very formal word that means talkative, and I have stuck it in a sentence that is very informal. Give them this sentence with the word underlined and say, read the article and find me a better synonym to fit this context. This is very formal. I need a more informal synonym. You'll find that you get a variety of answers. Most of those answers will be fine. Most of those answers will be right. So this helps build confidence in your students' use. They can see and recognize when something's out of place. And you're giving them something that's out of place, granted, but it's really helpful practice for exam prep. Now, if your students do the Cambridge assessments, you're going to see these types of exam questions on the exam. This is not an actual exam question. I made this one up. But this is exactly what they'll have to do in the more advanced levels of the Cambridge assessments. They will be given a sentence, and they will be given a whole bunch of similar related words, and they will need to choose the correct context. So the more that you get them used to recognizing register, the better they're going to do for this kind of exam prep. That's pretty intense. So another thing you can do is you can have them tell a story. The best part of this is that it works on every platform. It works in person, works over text, works on Zoom, works in chat, however you need to do it. Here's what you do. You pick an article. I did relax, has lots of fun synonyms at it. And just start a progressive story. Say, I'm going to give you the first sentence of the story. I want each of you to use one sentence to further the story. Janet had a good weekend. Here are all the things she did to relax. And then ask your students to help out. Rogerio, she chilled out listening to music. Noemia, Janet did yoga to de-stress. If they're not confident, just have them copy and start mimicking the examples that are at the Thesaurus itself. And this keeps it conversational. This helps them also hone not just the reading, but the speaking as well. So I hope that you'll see that there's a lot of different ways that you can use this. And the Cambridge English Thesaurus in particular gives some students and gives you as a teacher some keys to succeeding in learning the language. The first is that it makes them familiar with all sorts of different levels of a word's meaning and all sorts of different types of synonyms. And the more familiarity they have with that, and the more familiarity they have with English references, the more confidence they have. You'll find as your students get more familiar using monolingual learners dictionaries or the monolingual learners Cambridge Thesaurus, that they're going to start exploring on their own. And that kind of confidence is exactly what we want to highlight and focus on and encourage in our students. The great thing about the Thesaurus is it also gives you as a teacher the support that you need so that you can encourage that confidence. You don't need to rely on your own understanding of the language. And if you yourself are not a native English speaker, you might find things that are helpful there too. Again, I'm a native English speaker, and even I don't get the language right in my own intuition. And the other thing is, it can be fun. You can make language learning fun by doing all of these, fun little activities. It makes the language a joy, which is actually absolutely hyvä and kauniis. Thank you so much.